What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Clark Sparks Welding. Today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how to set your hourly rate as a mobile welder and kind of the way that I go about estimating jobs and giving out proposals. So what you're going to want to do is grab a pen and some paper so you can write this down and kind of figure out for you what this hourly rate is going to be. So at the top of your paper, you're going to want to write overhead. And so in this overhead column, what you're going to say, or what you're going to write down anyways, is your hard and fast expenses. So things like your rent for your shop, your truck payment, what it costs to run and maintain a truck, and then as well as what it costs to run and maintain a machine, or what it costs to rent a machine. So you're going to add those in, you're going to write all those down, all that stuff, like your business insurance, your vehicle insurance, all of it. Write all those things down that don't really change from month to month, and they just stay pretty consistent all the time. Those are what you're going to consider your overhead. You're going to leave out things like grinding discs, welding rod, and your welding gases. At least the way that I do this, I save those. We'll talk about what I do with those later. But for now, leave those out and write down all of your expenses in there and what they cost. And then you add those all together. So I would have written down, like I had said, my vehicle insurance, my business insurance, what it costs to run my truck, what it costs to run my machine, and then what it costs to have somebody weld, right? So what it costs for their pay. In other words, what it costs for me, because I'm a one-man operation, what it costs for me to run my business and be a welder in it. So I base this off of 200 hours for a month, right? So I add up all my expenses and divide it by 200. So let's say my expenses, including what it costs to pay wages, is $10,000 a month, right? So I take my 10,000 divided by 200, which equals 50. So I'm going to be charging $50 an hour for my overhead, right? That covers my overhead and employee and all that. 50 bucks. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to upcharge this, right? And what I mean by upcharge is markup, really, by 30 to 50%. Depending on what the local prices in your area are, you're going to want to figure out kind of what those are so you can stay competitive in your local market. So you can mark this up anywhere from 30 to 50%, which is a good number and a good range to stick in. In my local market, I am able to mark it up 50%. My overhead, I'm able to mark it up 50%. So I can charge $100 an hour for my mobile welding services, right? And that's kind of how you get to your hourly rate, right? So that extra 50 bucks an hour that you're going to be charging your customer, that doesn't pay you directly, that goes back into your business. You get paid what's in your already included in your hourly rate. So if that's 30 bucks, 20 bucks, whatever it may be, 50 bucks, all those things and drive up your hourly rate, right? And drive up your overhead, which drives up your hourly rate. So keep in mind that if you are taking just enough to cover your bills and put a little bit of expenses away, you will be a little bit better off and a little bit more competitive. There's an analogy I want you guys to think of, which is to feed yourself first. And this kind of analogy that I have, right? Every time you get on an airplane, the flight attendant tells you to put on your mask first before you help anybody else. And so the reason for that is you obviously can't help anybody else very well if you yourself can't breathe. So pay yourself enough to cover expenses and save a little bit in case of an emergency. if you're just starting out, you're just not quite to the point yet where you can uh, be a baller and go spend a whole bunch of money, buy a new truck. That's just not a realistic thing. It's not a realistic business model, and that's kind of something that I've seen um, with some. That's kind of something that I've noticed with people who start businesses and things like that. They kind of go crazy, think that their business is making all this money, so they're making all this money, which in reality, they're just spending the business's money. So that's something that we want to avoid. We want to keep our personal finances and our business finances separate. So that way we can leave room for growth and be able to function properly as a business. So that's kind of your overhead and your profit, right? Your 30 to 50% on your overhead, that gives you your profit. And so, like I said, just keep it, you want to keep that number competitive. Keep your hourly rate competitive. You're not going to be a millionaire on the first job, and probably not the second. It's something that takes a long time to do. And this hourly rate, you're going to charge it by the person. So if I hire myself and then I hire another welder, I'm going to charge $100 an hour for him as well. Not $100 for me and another guy. It's now my hourly rate is $200, right, for my two guys. So you want to keep that in mind as you're starting out. Right now it may just be you, so set your hourly rate up where you can still grow on it but still be competitive. And those are my tips for setting up your hourly rate. Now, what do you do with consumables and rod and grinding discs, all that stuff, and materials? What do you do? What do you do with that? And so what I would do, and what I do in my business is I take the current cost of consumables and materials. I say $500 on steel or whatever, and then $500 on consumables. Just again, random numbers that don't mean anything. But what I would do is I would mark those up by anywhere from 20 to 35%. That's going to keep you in kind of a, once again, at least in my area, you're going to want to figure out what the markup is for mobile welders in your area. But for me, what I've figured out is it's 20 to 35% is what they're marking up their materials as. So, and their consumables. So I'll do that and just add in 25% onto both my consumables and materials. So whenever I go to bid a job, here's how I do it. I say, all right, customer, Mr. Smith, it's going to take me 10 hours to do your project. I'm going to need 2 guys to do this. So we'll be charging $200 an hour for our services. And then we got a quote for you on the steel, and that is, $600 with our markup. I'm not going to say, probably not going to say to the customer's face, it's marked up $600. I'm just going to have that on my invoice. When I go to the customer and I'm actually talking to him, I'm not going to divide it up. I'm just going to say a total number. So it's going to cost $2,000 plus $600 plus $600 to do this job. So I would tell the customer over the phone or face to face, this job is going to cost $3,200 to do, and we will be done in 10 hours. So that's how I would do that, and it's not super complicated. It's a pretty simple method for me. I figured that this is kind of what works best for me. And what helps me to stay competitive to the other mobile welders in my area, and things like that. So if you guys do it a different way, that's awesome. Let us know in the comments how you do it. If you guys have any tips for myself or anybody else, let me know in the comments, and that way we can kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and maybe refine our estimating skills a little bit, because we can always do better in that area for everybody. Estimating at the end of the day is just a really sophisticated guess, right? So we want to, and the way to make those guesses accurate is with experience. So if we want to be as accurate as possible, we need to have as much experience. So like I said, if you guys have a foolproof method on how to set your hourly rate or how to do this, drop it in the comments, and help out the next guy. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.